Southampton today is a large bustling city with a population of roughly 217,000. It is one of the largest and busiest cities on England's south coast. West Quay was built over 8 years ago to attract tourism to Southampton and create jobs in the city. Yet when building work began on the shopping complex, builders discovered a wealth of archaeological finds dating back over 9,000 years. The finds dated back to when the city of Southampton did not exist in any form and the area is covered by a large pine forest. There was evidence of Southampton's oldest residents in the form of Bronze Age flints from a tribe of hunter-gatherers. These were the first people to live in the area of England we now know as Southampton. In 70 AD, the Romans built a small fortified town on a bend in the River Itchen. This town, known as Clausentium, was the first town to be built that eventually led to Southampton as we know it. The next evidence of occupation in the area is the Saxon town of Hamwick. Hamwick was established further down the River Itchen on the opposite bank, where St Mary's exists today. The town had a population of roughly 4,000 to 5,000, which was extremely large by Saxon standards. The Church of St Mary's is built on the site of an original Saxon church dating from Southampton's first settlement. This map shows how Southampton's area of occupation moved down the River Itchen from the first Roman settlement to medieval Southampton. In 1066 the Normans invaded England, bringing widespread change to the country. This would have a major effect on Southampton, as following the invasion a group of French nobles moved into Southampton. The French built their own church, the Church of St Michael. The original Norman church was built in around 1070 and the central Norman tower still remains. With its massive stone blocks and characteristic rounded arches, the church is reputed to be the oldest building in Southampton. Evidence remains today of this period in Southampton street names. Simnel Street is named after a type of flower, as bakers lived there. Bugle Street was named for butchers, as Bugle was a young bull, and French Street is named after the area in which the French settled. As prosperity grew with the import of wine from France and Spain, one merchant's house still exists today. It was built in 1290 for John Fortin, a merchant specialising in wine. It was one of England's finest existing medieval merchants' houses. God's House Tower stands at the southeast corner of the town walls that once encircled medieval Southampton. The building takes its name from the nearby hospital of God's House, founded in 1168 by Gervais Le Riche as a refuge for poor travellers. God's House Tower is a culmination of that work and is one of the earliest forts built specifically to carry cannon. One of Southampton's most famous and distinctive buildings is the Bargate. It has stood in the town centre for several hundred years since it was first built in the 13th century. Today, the Bargate looks vastly different from when it was first built, as it has received many alterations throughout its history. The two lions guarding the building were a later addition added in the 18th century. While the statue of what appears to be a Roman is in fact that of George III, it is an 18th century example of neoclassicism in art. Inside there still exist the original arches dating from when the Bargate was first built. In 1765, a passage was cut through the eastern side to allow pedestrians through. A matching passage was later cut through the western side. When the Normans invaded, they began to build a castle in Southampton. Work began in 1150 on a wooden Motte and Bailey castle. This was later rebuilt in stone. Nothing remains of the castle to date except two walls and the road and place names. In 1290 to 1300, a series of stone walls were built around Southampton. To cut costs, the townspeople of the city incorporated many stone buildings into the walls. Many sections of walls still exist today and are one of the most complete medieval walls in the UK. One of the oldest buildings in Southampton is the Red Lion pub on the High Street. Built in the 12th century, it became famous after the ringleaders of the Southampton plot were captured prior to King Henry V sailing to Agincourt. The plotters planned to kill King Henry and replace him. Inside the pub, wooden beams and wattle walls still exist within the original 12th century architecture. Another old building in Southampton is the Tudor House, built around 1492 by John Daughtry. It is one of the best surviving examples of Tudor architecture in the country. At present, it is undergoing a £1.6 million restoration project. Despite this, you can still see examples of Tudor herringbone brickwork, named after the fact it represents the distinctive pattern of the fish's back. Another example of Tudor architecture in Southampton is the nearby Wall Merchant's House. The wool trade was Britain's greatest national asset and was one of the country's biggest sources of income. British wool was said to be so fine it was comparable with a spider's web. At the forefront of this trade were coastal ports such as Southampton, which grew due to increased trade. Examples of architecture of the time can be seen in nearby public houses. By the end of the 16th century, Southampton was becoming a substantial port town with a bustling trade. This wasn't to last though. By the 17th century, Southampton began to fall into decline. On the 5th of August 1620, the Mayflower, along with the Speedwell, left Southampton for America. The Mayflower famously carried the Pilgrim Fathers, some of the first settlers settling the newly discovered North America. In the 18th century, Southampton began to grow again, following a century of decline. In 1750, Prince Frederick bathed in the sea at Southampton. This brought about a boom in popularity for Southampton, especially among the upper classes, and Southampton became a spa town. This boom brought new trade, which in turn meant more buildings were built, especially around the area of Oxford Street. One such building that benefited from this boom was the Dolphin Hotel. The Dolphin Hotel has existed since medieval times, but was rebuilt in 1775 due to Southampton becoming a popular spa town. Shakespeare's acting troupe is said to have performed here, and Jane Austen danced there twice. It is said to have the biggest period bow windows in England. Many extravagant buildings can still be seen on both Oxford Street and on the lower High Street. Many of these buildings date from the 19th century. Many of these buildings have been built in neoclassical style. Neoclassicism was popular in the 19th century, as uses examples of classical architecture such as columns and friezes put on modern buildings. In the actual town centre itself, there are several large parks. Many of these are left over from the 18th century, and Southampton became a spa town. Due to this, the town engineers added several parks to give the feeling of healthier living. Many of these parks still exist to this day. Southampton has always been known for its connection to the sea and sailing. These days it is also known for its cruise liners. This connection began in the late 19th century, when many transatlantic liners left from Southampton. A new railway line connected to the docks was added. This line and station allowed passengers to catch train right to the docks. The most famous liner to leave Southampton was the Titanic, which sailed in 1912 on its fateful maiden voyage. Many of the crew and boiler men on board came from Southampton and perished when the boat sank. Many liners still leave Southampton today, such as the Queen Mary II and most recently the Queen Victoria, as well as many P&O cruise liners. Southampton was to receive its worst damage since medieval times, when the Blitz started in 1940. Southampton took large amounts of damage due to the fact that it was a vital port and had a Spitfire factory. The effects of this damage can still be seen today on the High Street in the ruins of Holyrood Church. Holyrood was bombed on the 1st and 2nd of December 1940. Its twisted remains are a disturbing memory of Southampton's darkest moment. 631 people were killed and 4,000 houses destroyed in Southampton during the Second World War. In 1928, plans were put forward for a new civic centre in Southampton. The grandiose plans were for a new central centre for Southampton's government. The large building was built between 1932 and 1939. It was built in 4 sections, with a ring of the buildings being completed one at a time. On seeing the completed building, Nazi Luftwaffe leader Hermann Göring declared that it was a cake I wished to slice open. Despite this, the building remained largely unscathed from bombing in the Second World War. The only major incident was when a bomb hit the civic centre, where a group of schoolchildren had been sheltering, killing 11 of them instantly. Southampton's War Memorial is near the civic centre. It was designed by the same architect as the Cenotaph in London. The memorial is an early design on which the Cenotaph was eventually based. Southampton has existed for over 1,000 years to become the town we know today. What does the future hold for Southampton? With today's climate of terrorism and global warming, the future looks bleak. Will Southampton survive another 1,000 years?
Come the day you see the sun hit the arch, a history song. If you don't know it now, then you will do. If you don't know it now, then you will do.
Shane will like the actually going to school.